Welcome to the chat where the deals get done. Real estate tips and a whole lot of fun. Think different, achieve your goals. Real estate simplified, that's how we roll.
Good morning and welcome to our show today. I'm Mike Cruz, broker owner at Reside Real Estate, here with Brandon Rizik, and we have a guest today.
Miss Nikki Bott with Landmark Title, Escrow, Senior Escrow Officer, and she's here today to help us explain what escrow is, what title is, why you need it, lots of good stuff that, we really don't all know. So,
Before we inundate Nikki with questions, I hear we have a little bit of news in the interest rate world.
The interest rate world is awesome right now. It's getting better. I hate to say this, but the economy is softening. Things are coming in with, I want to say it's kind of negative news when it comes to the economy itself, but in the end, it's actually really good for interest rates. So in the last 2 days, here we are in mid-June, in the last 2 days, we're starting to see rates come down, and it is becoming more and more likely that we'll see some decreases in rates from the Fed and all across the board. So there are some bond sell-offs going to be coming soon, so we'll see how that works. We still have a lot of tariff questions and stuff, but it's looking up and up for interest rates to start finally coming down.
So great news for home buyers.
Great news for home buyers.
They've got plenty of inventory out there to go see homes. So if you haven't met with your agent or lender yet, get on it. If you're thinking about buying, it's a great time.
Get ready, it's coming, guys. It's coming. So we're here with Nikki Bott today at Landmark Escrow,
Yes.
Title and Escrow.
Yes.
And Nikki is a friend of mine. I have known her for many years now, and we have closed many transactions together, as well as Mike has worked with her in the past as well. And Nikki volunteered to come join our show today to explain what the hell is title and escrow. What do they do? They are the mystery behind the mystery, and I think it's an underrated portion of our transaction that people just don't understand because there's just not a whole lot of interaction with them,
Right.
on the consumer side at least. So I'll let Nikki introduce herself and we'll go from there.
Oh, that's awkward. I am Nikki Bott. I have been in the industry since, I don't want to age myself, so I'm just going to say for around 20 years. And I don't know, I was still in last year of college and I got a job as a receptionist for a title company, and then here we are,
Awesome.
flash forward a couple decades. So, but I'm with Landmark Title, and we are the fastest growing title company in Southern Nevada.
Awesome.
And very excited to be here with you, gentlemen. So thanks for having me.
All right.
Awesome.
So let's get into it. Typically, what is escrow? We get that question.
What is escrow, and what is the difference between escrow and closing escrow? Because we all hear both of those, but tell me the difference.
I would think one's an adjective and one's a noun. So let's go with the basics. I would think escrow, the definition of escrow is neutrality, holding. You hear a lot of people refer to escrow. That doesn't really necessarily involve a title company. But escrow is the third party holding center. So the process of escrow is, to simplify it, I would say probably the neutral third party holder of the funds. During that process here in Nevada, we are title and escrow. And so we in-house search the titles, make sure there's nothing derogatory on the property, bankruptcy lien, overdue taxes. We settle up if there's some stuff on the seller that needs to be collected. We take the money from the buyer's lender, we put it all together, spit it back out, and we produce a title policy for the mortgage lender and for the buyer. It says your property is free and clear of all liens. So it is our job, and you actually receive a policy of title insurance just like you do for your home or automobile.
Okay.
if that helps
Okay,
at all.
so, well, we'll get into title in a minute because I think that that's totally in a consumer's mind, or in my mind, they're two separate entities, right?
Right.
But in Nevada, it is both. I mean, usually it's done at the same place, right? But as far as escrow is concerned, you said your neutrality, right? You said you guys kind of mix the funds. You guys are the ones handling the funds, right? So. Mike's in real estate, I'm in lending, okay? So now in real estate, there's a seller, there's a buyer, and the seller's going to get money back usually, in most cases, and then the buyer is going to bring in the money. So you're the person who handles the money.
Correct. I'm the person that handles the money, and because I have no interest, I'm going to be the person that says, hey, we got an issue on the title, or we have an issue with we do searches for so many judgments, such as bankruptcies, child support, federal tax liens. So
I'm going to stop you. I'm sorry, Mike. You want to go?
I was actually just going to ask you out of curiosity, share with us and your viewers, what's the worst lien you've ever seen?
There's certain liens called lis pendens, and that is in Latin pending court action.
Okay.
I've seen a number of very interesting court action. So if you go to jail or if you are being tried on any type of case that's substantial in liability, more than likely if you're a homeowner, they're going to file lis pendens on that property.
Gotcha.
Same thing in a divorce. Sometimes savvy divorce attorneys will file lis pendens so a husband or wife can't sell the property out from another.
Right.
So I guess I would say I've seen a lot of interesting, really, really bad characters that also are homeowners. And there's a couple that I don't think I can talk about,
Right.
but I remember one time, this was years ago, I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have one of the local channels, I think it was Fox 5, would have Most Wanted here, like locally, like people that have flee. And I remember one night sitting at home watching the news, and it was my the same name as my missed 4 o'clock appointment. And I said, that's interesting. Yeah.
He didn't show up to his appointment.
Because the name
hey.
was unusual. It was like a male name. It was, I'm making this up, it was something like Leslie, like where it's typically a female name. So
Right.
it stuck out. And I'm all, that's unusual. So the next day, their real estate agent said, do you happen to have any notaries that go to the prison? And so it turned out to be that guy, and he had committed a horrible crime where he had like ran his car over a woman and her baby carriage. So I mean,
Sorry you asked.
so yeah, I mean, I could go on. There could be a lot more, but I just figured I'd just kind
I
of
thought
keep it at that.
it would just be some crazy IRS lien.
Yeah,
But no.
no,
I was
Thinking
IRS liens all.
something crazy, but
300,000 IRS back taxes, nothing.
that's a breeze. Walking
phew,
the park.
yeah.
We're running people over.
Yeah,
over there.
yeah.
All
There's
right,
actual crimes.
Wow.
Okay.
committed.
All right. Well, I wanted to mention, you said something about searching for bankruptcies and stuff like that. So that's something that we don't realize in our side of the industry is that
Right.
you're actually searching the person too.
Yeah.
So we just assume there's a title search to the property itself. The liens on the property, mechanics liens, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But there might be personal liens.
Yeah,
on people.
it's the number one. So many times, and you get it too a lot of times in the lending industry, we're the deliverer of bad news. But it's not my fault that the person didn't pay their child support,
Right.
so remember that. But when there's certain liens that take priority, and those are state dictated per statute. So certain judgments, so if they're filed in a certain court, they will show up during a title search. So if you haven't paid Capital One, and they decided that they were going to take you through a certain district court, and it shows up as an abstract judgment, it's probably going to appear. Then we go down this rabbit hole of who does it appear on. So it's basically who has the majority say. So if you're selling your home, you've got liquid assets. So if we've searched your name and you've got some judgments or child support lien that you haven't paid, the state has already determined you're going to pay that upon selling your home. Sometimes the IRS says there's too much owed here. I'm going to take all the proceeds of the home. That's rare, but if you refinance, more than likely it's somehow considered cash out, right? If you refinance and you've got a child support, or more than likely that's going to show up on a search.
So this is really cool. So these are things that protect the bank, that protect the opposite party in a transaction or whatever it is, and this is why escrow is necessary, because you can't just hand your bank the money and expect your bank to pay the seller. You can't just do these things, or hand your real estate agent the money and say, hey, where do I wire that $100,000? Oh, put it in Mike's account. Why not? You know, you can't do that. So you need this third party. It's kind of like a checks and balance system, so to say. And there, when she said neutrality, that really is. Hey, seller's got a problem, buyer's got a problem, or everybody's good, and we move on, right?
Yeah.
So
it sounds like the escrow process, there is a process needed to look out for everybody in the transaction.
Absolutely, and a lot of times we all lose sight of it because it does, you think you've gone through the worst of it, you handled the inspection with the home, the buyer got qualified for the loan, and then all of a sudden the seller had, $20,000 he didn't pay on child support 15 years ago, and it comes
and they
up
didn't
now.
even remember, whatever it may be. It could be an innocent mistake.
Sometimes the new wife didn't know about it, and it's the guy that, there's who you see lots.
So I ask those questions when I do loan apps, right? And I had this couple in, they just got engaged. I'm not saying any names or anything like that, and they came in the office, and I says, okay, I have to ask these questions. Is there any child support or alimony that you have to pay? And sure enough, the guy got real quiet, and I said, okay, and he said, can you excuse me for a minute? I said, okay, no problem. So he walks out, he paces around my office, and I'm like, look, what's this guy doing, And then all of a sudden he comes back in, he goes, honey, can you excuse Brandon and I? I said, oh boy, this is not good. So he was deciding whether he was going to tell me or not, right?
Yeah.
So then he comes in and he tells me, he goes, I have child support, and she doesn't know. I said, well, I don't want to be that guy. But
please don't make me.
This is going to be on an application. Like, I don't have to tell her because that's not my job. But at the same time, she's going to see it.
Yeah.
Needless to say, they never bought a house.
Wow.
So, but anyway, so it is something that can come up. So just give everybody full disclosure.
Yeah.
It's the bottom line. But what about title? So you mentioned a few things about searching the title to a home and all of that. Why? Maybe is it a Nevada thing? Is it whatever? Why is title and escrow combined usually?
Here it's a Nevada thing. So some people are probably familiar with back east, where it's a round table signing, where we kind of run across that challenge with people that are from the East Coast, or mortgage lenders that are from the east side that don't understand what closing is, when we bring things down to the county recorder and make it official. Closing back east is when everybody comes in to sign, they record later. It's just spelled out how each statute writes their policy. So title insurance back east goes into effect the day they sign. Here it's once we know the documents are recorded and everything's signed off, that's when we issue the policy. You guys have been trained to don't release keys until I know they're ready to issue a policy.
Correct. We always hear from you, the
wait
escrow
for me,
officer.
right?
Yep.
So there's and so that's where you would see title companies and escrow companies. So the title people back east are just people that just search titles all day, and the escrow people are the ones that put the figures, and then they bring everybody together in signings. We're the lucky ones that do it all. So we are here in-house. I like it better, but that's what I grew up with, and that's what I'm used to.
That's what we're used to, right?
California, and that's just because of a population issue. They have some, we call them agencies that are just escrow companies that they just kind of broker out through title companies.
Right.
And so they kind of handle anything. You wouldn't know necessarily that the title is handled somewhere differently.
By
They
a
still
third-party company,
right,
yeah.
right.
If you read the fine print, I
Exactly,
think you see it. Yeah.
exactly. A little bit of a delay in stuff. People here, especially in Nevada, are very used to quick turnaround. And in California, it's days upon days of just to get an answer on one thing, or you know.
Interesting.
And that's just, I just think that's just a way of how we roll versus
More reason for the Californians to come on over.
quicker escrow services.
Quicker escrow service. I like it. I like it. So,
Okay. What else do we have, Brandon?
well, you mentioned Nevada and how we work here. So Nevada is what's called a community property state, right? So tell us how, what generally, really, what is that, and how does that affect your job?
That's a good question. That's another hot topic. So, community property. For those of you that don't know, Nevada's community property. If you purchase any type of property, the spouse, as soon as you get married and you hitch your wagon, your property is commingled. What we do.
I'm going to interrupt you. If you're from back east, this is different than dowry. This is much different
yes.
than dowry. So pay attention. Dowry does not exist in Nevada. It is community property, but go ahead.
Community property, and we don't have common law
Right.
here. But we do have domestic partnership, which is recognized just the same as marriage with community property. So you own a property, as long and short of it. You own a property, you have owned that property single, you get married, and your spouse is in the process of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. That is now attached to your property. So you've got to go through all the motions of closing out
Just
that
because
bankruptcy.
you're married.
Just because you're married. So those wagons hitched. And so let's just jump back to the judgment lien search issue. You are selling your property and you say, oh, Nikki, I'm married now. Okay, well, I'm going to need that spouse to sign something that says, it's a deed, but it's basically telling us, I don't want any interest in it. I never had any interest in it. That's our way of safeguarding and recording of public record. We verified. There's
Now-
not a spouse out there that thinks they're getting 50% proceeds.
What if
or
I bought
whatever.
it before I was married?
We're
Are we
still
touching a gray area here?
We're still going to have you have that spouse have a deed. That's just
to protect her.
That's just being safe and wise, because anything that can happen. Odds are, and the way that the law is written in Nevada, that it's yours.
Right.
It's yours. But divorces go upside down and sideways all the time. So maybe your spouse, you were getting ready to lose the home during the time that you guys owned it, and your spouse gave you 50 grand from her retirement money. A judge is more than likely going to say, there's something here,
These are
you know.
things that we never think of.
Right.
You know,
Right.
hey, I bought it before I was married, but hey, my spouse contributed a lot to this property. So if you're in a mediation for divorce, this can come up.
Don't
So-
think that's not going to come up.
Absolutely.
And it's not saying because we're going to have your spouse come in and sign and you're selling the property. My spouse didn't have anything to do with the property. Okay, we're going to be all in agreement.
Right.
And of public record saying that the spouse had no problem signing over their community property interest. However, that's not saying you guys are still going to go through a divorce down the road and the proceeds from that sale, a judge isn't going to award whatever. We're not the judge and jury of it. We're just securing y'all's interest. We're
Right.
securing the buyer. We're securing the
Back to neutrality
the
right
lender.
here.
Yeah,
Back to
we're just,
neutrality.
hey, if this spouse for whatever reason comes out of the woodwork 5 years from now and says, I contributed this property and nobody even told me that this was being sold, XYZ, well, that's not the case because you came in, you signed this, and this got recorded, so take it up in court.
Right.
We don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
That type of thing, so yeah.
Absolutely. That's really cool. That's good to know. I mean, community property rights is it definitely is a hot topic because a lot of people don't understand it, know it's there, and know what's happening. So, you know, I don't want to take too much time, but just maybe we can talk about, Mike, because we, you know, we get this question probably even more than you do because we have more direct with consumer access. Talk about just a brief scenario of maybe a couple types of ways of taking title in Nevada.
The most common would be joint tenancy or community property with right of survivorship. Both provide right of survivorship. The main difference between those two is joint tenancy. You and I can buy property, and we can be joint tenants.
100% owners.
100. Unfortunately, if you were to pass away, no need for probate or the
She's already
state
killing
to,
me off.
right?
She just got here.
No need for the state to step involved or investigate me for whatever reason. No, I'm just kidding. But you and I, we've got the property 50-50. We write it off on our taxes. We do whatever. Community property is just that extra benefit that some people think there's a big difference, and there's really not anymore, because it used to be community property with right of survivorship was the only way spouses could vest. Well, then they added additional statute that said, well, actually people can invest as joint tenants, they don't need to be married. So that kind of came later. So there really is no difference. There's folklore out there that says there is a difference between the two as far as providing right of survivorship, and there is absolutely not. The only thing that doesn't, we see a lot of business partners want to vest as, you've seen it, as undivided interest, undivided 50% interest, undivided 90%, 10%.
Is that a tenants in common type of
Yeah,
thing?
tenants in common. That does not provide the right of survivorship, and more than likely somebody was advised to do that. Like I said, it's almost always a business relationship. Somebody invested more in a
Two
property.
investors in one property,
Right,
whatever
exactly,
it may be, right?
exactly.
Right.
And that was advised to them. And also, more than likely, it doesn't provide the right of survivorship, but they probably have some other additional paperwork in their corporate structure that has a clause of what happens if they pass away.
Right.
So.
Right. And just remember that if you do have questions on how to take ownership of a property, talk to an attorney. We,
Always.
as real estate agents, lenders, escrow officers, we can't give legal advice.
All we can do is provide you with what they are, and you guys have to make your own decision with your
Right.
attorney, whomever it is.
Right.
And then you also have trusts. So.
That's our next
Did
thing we're
you-
going
Go
to
ahead, bring it in, Mike.
Yeah.
Bring it in.
Why would somebody want to put a property into a trust?
Again, she's not an attorney.
Not an
Let's just
attorney.
say
I'm not
that.
providing any legal advice. I'm just going to be everybody's life coach here. Why wouldn't you? Is what I always say. The cost of having a trust done is so inexpensive, especially compared to what you have to deal with upon the passing of a loved one, right? With the whole estate matters. In my case, I have a trust. Because I have a lot of equity in my home. I own assets, boat, toys, but more
I want to
important.
go on the boat.
But
Just saying.
we keep saying we're going to do a boat day. but-
I haven't got a boat day. I'm just
All right,
saying.
good. That'll be the next podcast. We'll do it from the boat.
Calling you out on the
We'll do it
podcast.
from the boat.
Perfect.
But I also have a horrible ex-husband. So I don't want, we have a child together. I don't want anything, if it goes to my child, I don't want his hands on it. I don't want anything like that. So that's my personal interest. Another great way to settle all potential matters with the trust is if you've got a lot of children. I only have one child, but I know you have a trust, and that it's foolproof. It's done. Something happens to the both of you. You're on vacation, whatever. It's already designed how this is going to go. There's no
Right.
Aunt Susie's not going to come out of the
Yeah.
woodwork. Cousin Joe isn't going to come out of the woodwork drunk at the funeral. You know, it's all just settled. And almost 9 times out of 10, the people that have a trust have their trust person on standby. If the
Right.
attorney's already retired or closed, that stuff gets passed on and is looked over by somebody else.
Right.
So it's just such a minimal cost for how much it saves you.
And I know a lot of people will say that they have their property in the will, but there is a difference between a will and a trust.
Big
so
difference,
yeah,
absolutely.
so it's definitely recommended you always put it into a trust. That way, there's no argument over it.
Right.
There's no argument over succession. There's no argument of your intentions, and it will help any judge in a probate situation know exactly what to do with your property and how to divide it. It will eliminate any probate issues, actually.
100%. Like, almost everybody does a trust with a will, and the will is great. I have my binder with my trust. It stays in the area. My family members know where to find it. But my guy gave me some extra sheets of paper for my will. So if I'm cleaning house and I'm like, oh, there's that watch, and I'll just run over to my trust and put it in the will, because the will is only to dictate where the personal property goes.
Right.
Personal property only.
And if you have a trust set up, make sure you have a bank account in the trust name, so when you sell the property, you're able to get those proceeds into that trust.
Right. There's ways you can mitigate around it if it's the Nikki Bott trust.
Right.
And I have an account under Nikki Bott. I mean, we know how to look at certain things, but if your grandpa, you're handling his estate, and you know, you're Mike Cruz and grandpa was, you know, Frank Lopez, like,
Right.
what are you going to do? You know, I mean, so it's just always best. Plus, especially if you have a lot of children, or a lot of, if you have it designated for a lot of people, it's one more thing, just like Brandon was saying, to just keep the
Well, the
estate nice
executor of
and
your
tight.
trust is also the executor of your bank account that's in the trust
Correct.
name.
Right.
It just makes things a lot easier.
Right.
So absolutely.
And 9 times out of 10, once that property is sold, it's going to go to this child, this child, this child,
Yeah,
this, that,
right.
and yeah. So
I only bring it up because just fairly recently I had
good-
a
it's good
transaction
info.
where I was representing the sellers, and turned out, got to the last minute, and they didn't have that bank account
oops,
set
yeah,
up.
yeah.
So,
Well, we have one last question, okay, for you.
I'm ready.
And you know, there's a homestead, and then there's a declaration of homestead. Okay, a homestead is a type of property, to my knowledge. I'll let Mike talk about that more. But there is, in Nevada, it's called a declaration of homestead. Everybody asks what this is, and I know what it is. Mike knows what it is, but I want Nikki to advise, if she can, what exactly does the declaration of homestead do? How do you file it? What is it, etc. So,
It's pretty easy to file. I think any type of legal Zoom, Nevada legal forms, they're absolutely wonderful. They have an amazing website too. We don't do homesteads. I mean, if I know how to do my own, but I'm just saying, no, we're not in the business of just doing homesteads for people, but it's very inexpensive. You know, less than $75, something like that. I'm not an attorney, so I can't tell you exactly what it does. I can tell you that what it will do is prevent you, if you're a homeowner, prevent you from having to sell your home if you were sued. If you're sued, your neighbor's kids jumping on your trampoline, if that turns into a lawsuit, you lose, and there's a large settlement. It's going to protect your home from having to
The
be
equity in your
leveraged.
home, right.
Yeah,
Yep.
the equity in the home from having to be leveraged to pay off that lawsuit.
Okay.
So the neighbor won $100,000 for their kid's broken arm on your trampoline. You have another way to figure it out. You don't have to. You're not forced to tap into the equity of your
Right.
home. Or back east, they don't have declaration of homestead.
this is an awesome benefit.
So yeah,
Awesome,
so
awesome.
those guys, and it actually happened to one of my siblings, a neighbor kid, same scenario, slipped and fell, broke their leg, they got sued, and they had to tap into the equity of their home because the judge looks at your assets and says, this is how you're going to repay it.
Yeah, which I think it protects it. You know, today is what, 550,000.
Yeah, remember back in the day.
Equity.
Back in the day, it used to be something like 50 grand. I'm
Yeah,
talking here.
something,
Now
right.
it will protect the value of
Most of
90%
your
of
asset.
homeowners here. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So there's one thing I want to add to this as a mortgage lender, because I get asked this a lot, or I mention this a lot to my clients. You know, a lot of people refi, right, over time, whatever it is, whether you want to cash out or you want to lower your rate, whatever it is, and they when they purchase the property, they filed their declaration of homestead, but then they refi. And people forget to refile that.
Right.
Anytime you touch the title to the property, whether it's a refinance or anything, the first declaration of homestead you did is gone.
Right.
you need to refile it. So anytime you add somebody to the title or do anything, you need to remember to refile your declaration of homestead anytime the title to your property is
Because that
changed.
homestead is also for the people that are living in the home.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's not just the person on title that owns the
Right.
property.
Right.
All right.
Well,
We appreciate you being here,
Yeah,
Nikki.
thanks for having me.
Welcome back anytime. And don't
Loads of
forget
information, yes.
to like, share, subscribe, click that thumbs up button, and we appreciate you watching.
thank you guys.
Welcome to the chat where the deals get done. Real estate tips and a whole lot of fun. Think different, achieve your goals. Real estate simplified.